Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Veterans Corner. My name is Chuck Woodin, and I'll be your host. Today we have a special guest who's actually no stranger to the Veterans Corner, Mr. Dan Thurston. Dan is a past department commander for the American Legion with the, that's on a state level department.
That's correct.
And that was, I think you served back in 2011.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good memory.
Yeah. Welcome back to the show.
Oh, it's good to be back, Chuck.
It's like the third time that you've been here, and it's good to see you again. Dan, just tell the viewers that haven't watched in the past a little bit about where you served and what branch you were in.
Okay. Well, I'm a U.S. Air Force veteran. I served 1964 to 68. Spent some time in Southeast Asia, and so I'm a Vietnam veteran, and didn't really get involved with the Veterans Organization till later. And that's kind of what we want to address tonight is the Vsos, what they are, what we do, because I'm involved in it, and why we exist, and why it's important to become involved in the Vsos, and especially our younger veterans. We need them.
Yeah, well, as always, I know we've said it to you in the past, but once again, it's equally it's important that you know that the viewers, on behalf of the viewers and the crew here at the Veterans Corner, we want to thank you very much for your service.
Oh, thank you.
And welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back.
You had mentioned VSOs. Most people, even veterans, sometimes that doesn't click of what that actually is.
Yeah.
Can you explain to the viewers what a VSO is?
Well, in broad terms, it's an organization that is chartered by Congress of the United States, and the sole purpose of serving and supporting and to advocate for veterans and that have served our nation. So that's kind of the broad definition. As VSOs were exempt under IRS code, and we are 501c19. That not only provides tax-exempt status, such as a 501c3, but it also gives us the ability to directly lobby Congress. And that I see as an important aspect of the VSOs, and not only what we do, but call it a burden or call it a blessing that we can go and speak in our own behalf, and we do not have to act through a lobbying group.
Well, I mean, just examples. There's many examples of VSOs. I mean, the biggest one is the American Legion. Second one is it's right there, just as big as the VFW.
Yeah.
DAV, and it goes on. Amvets. There's many.
Yeah. I kind of break them down into a few general categories. You got your major VSOs, what you mentioned. You've got, and they're basically wartime era service and branch of service non-specific. In other words, you don't have to have served during any particular war era, or in any particular branch of the service, or have any other credentials other than the fact that you're an honorably discharged veteran. Also, there's war era specific. Examples of that are the Korean War veterans, Vietnam Veterans of America, the Global War on Terror has now started an organization, and you have to have served during that period of wartime. And then there's other organizations that are based either on the branch of service or some unit or a specific service criteria, and such as the Marine Corps League and Order of the Purple Heart. So, and the Navy has, all kinds of organizations. If you served on a ship, they generally have their own group. That gets together on a
reunions.
Right, and so there's a lot of categories that you fit in, and when I look at why people join organizations, it's because you have some sort of a connection to that organization, and you relate to them, and because you served with them, or there's some
still
other
have that great sense of pride in.
Yes, yeah, and
it's. I mean, I know you went over some of this stuff, but as far as eligibility for the VSOs, I know actually each group is somewhat different, as far as what the requirements are to join.
Yeah, to do a quick summary here, take an organization like the VFW. In order to belong to the VFW, you have to have been boots on the ground or have a wartime service medal. So, if you have a World War II or a Korean or Vietnam service medal or Global War on Terror service medal, then you're eligible for the VFW.
For those that were in the Navy, they may not know it, but the Navy Expeditionary Medal,
yes, right,
allows you to join.
That's correct. And the American Legion doesn't require the boots on the ground aspect of the thing, but you have to have served during a period of declared war or conflict, and that's determined by Congress. So they have eligibility dates for the American Legion. Amvets, on the other hand, is open to all veterans.
Honorably discharged.
Honorably discharged since World War II, and that's, that includes anybody today.
Yep.
Or we also have veterans that have served in the National Guard or Reserve are eligible for the Amvets organization. DAV has, other than the basic criteria of having been honorably discharged, you have to have served under in the armed forces during a period of war or under conditions of simulating war for their charter, and also that you have suffered a wound or disability or left with long-term illnesses as a result of your military services. So they have that criteria that for entrance into the DAV organization, or Disabled American Veterans. So each organization has its own specific criteria. They're written into the constitutions and as when it was approved by Congress, and they're locked into that. So the organizations that are warrior specific will eventually go away. Unfortunately, they will wind up being replaced by another war.
Yeah, it's unfortunately it seems to be no shortage.
No, that's very true.
Yeah. It's here's a question that I know we've discussed, and the viewers are probably going to find this an interesting question. Who is considered a veteran? And the reason why I ask you that is I know we've talked about this, and actually a number of us, I've had a number of conversations over the years with veterans, and there is a group of veterans who, for some reason, because they may not have been in a combat area, boots on the ground, they don't consider themselves veterans.
Yes, right.
So, and there's more than we actually know, because we hear it quite often. Who is considered a veteran?
Okay, part A, I guess, to that question. Well, according to U.S. and Connecticut state statutes, they define a veteran as any person honorably discharged from or released under honorable conditions from active service in the armed forces. I have a slight tweak to that for the sake of clarity, and a veteran is any man or woman that has served in the armed forces of the United States, and of course has been discharged under honorable conditions. So the it not only includes the men that have served, but especially now we have more women entering the service than ever before, and they are also veterans. And again, I think what you referred to, as you hear from women veterans more often than the men, but still you hear it from both. You know, and at first it seemed kind of odd to me, but thinking back, if you had asked me the same question when I came home, you probably would not have considered myself a veteran. You know, we go out there, we do our job, and we do it to the best of our ability, and you know that's what we did.
Yep.
And you know, we don't expect anything when we return to civilian life. You know, I can't guess how many times there was a VFW post not too far from where I lived, and I used to go by it on a regular basis. And had a beautiful building, big columns out in front, and
Yep.
VFW, you know, big letters over the top of the thing. Never had a clue as
Pops
to,
right out at you.
yeah, pops right out at you, but I
Yeah.
never had a clue that what it was, you know, what the Veterans of Foreign Wars was, or that I was eligible to belong to the organization. So, you know, and that was true with all the VSOs. The American Legion, you know, had no idea what they were. You know, and it leads me to believe that we've got to do a better PR job. You know, we've got to let people know, not only veterans, but also the public, who we are, what we do, why we exist. You know, and it was over 30 years before somebody took the initiative to introduce me to the American Legion. Well, the rest of this history is going to kind of, you know.
You've been heavily involved since.
Yes, one of the reasons that I hear from wartime veterans is, like you said, you know, I've never served in the combat zone. Well, the last number that I remember was only about 10% of the military serve on the front line, you know, in actual combat conditions. I'll question that today, because if you think about the nature of the war that we're engaged in my opinion, it doesn't have a front line.
Yeah.
You know, if you were in Iraq or Afghanistan, you were on the front line. You were there.
Yeah.
That
You
said,
would think those numbers would be higher than 10%.
yeah, well, it was a number that was probably valid in previous conflicts, but I don't think they, you know, really thought about it too much. You know, you know, in terms of the current conflict. But that said, even if you never left the States, you're a veteran.
Yeah.
You know, without the supplies, the support from the troops behind the lines, the troops on the front line would not be able to complete their mission. If there was one thing that contributed to the success of the military, you know, for the United States, it's teamwork.
Yes.
You know, somebody falls up here in the States, it ripples right down to the front line, and
The effects are going to be felt.
yes, and I've seen it to this day.
It's a team effort, and
Yeah.
it's if you take one of those cogs out of the wheel there,
Yeah.
it affects everybody.
Things go bad real quick. Yeah. And but everybody does his or her job, and to their best, we have the ability to succeed. So getting back to the question, who is a veteran? In my view, the official definition applies. You took the Armed Forces Oath of Allegiance. You served as you were assigned and you're directed, and you received that DD-214 in your hand under honorable conditions. You are a veteran, and you are eligible for membership in at least one, if not more than one of the VSOs.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many groups out there. I mean, we mentioned the large ones. I believe, you know, we had mentioned the American Legion. The American Legion was it the world's largest veterans organization?
Yeah, I haven't looked at the figures, but I think they're still in the lead. What was the last? It's still well over 2 million members nationwide. or worldwide.
And the VFW is right there. I mean, they're right behind.
Yeah, they've been tussling back
Yeah.
and forth for years on that.
So, you know, we mentioned American Legion being, but I mean, those two right there are the largest.
Yes.
You know, it's, you know, matter of fact, when Marianne was our very first female department commander.
Right.
And I remember having a conversation with her one day, and she was telling me that she was surprised to hear about the women out there, the veterans, that didn't consider themselves veterans.
Right.
And you know, this was coming from you know our commander. You know, she was shocked.
Yeah.
So it is a problem out there, and we really need to make sure that what Dan said is if you receive the DD-214 honorable conditions, you are a veteran. It doesn't matter if you never left the country. Your efforts and everything that you did played an extremely important role.
Right.
For those men and women that were on the front lines.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and as we mentioned before in rundown of the various organizations, it may affect as to which organizations you can belong to, but still, you're a veteran. You know, that can't be taken away. You know, that's
You've earned that. You've earned that.
You've earned that, and
status,
you know,
that
it's yours for your life.
You know, we're mentioning VSOs. Why is it important for a veteran to become a member of one of the VSOs?
Well, you know, as time's running out for the show, so is time running out for the current crop of veterans. Most of the leadership of the organizations today are Vietnam era veterans. That makes us 60 plus, okay? Do the math and you figure out, unless somebody snuck in under the wire, you know, they've got to be at least 60 years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, we lose veterans every day.
Yes, we do.
And in this state, you know, I just attended the Legion convention. We recognize and honor our veterans, members that have left us this past year and gone to post everlasting. And every year it's probably averages out 800 per year, but if you look at the VFW, there's another, you know, similar number, 800. And add
we're
in
up
the
to
other
1,600.
Yeah, so you're, you know, a couple thousand veterans are lost each year, and many of these are the people that have done the yeoman's work for many years. And there's a big gap between Vietnam era and the current conflict, and we need the younger veterans to become aware of that, because one of the key reasons in my mind is that, getting back to the distinction that the IRS gives us, is that we have the right to directly lobby Congress and to advocate for our veterans. And some of the things that we do is to ensure that our healthcare system is maintained. And I think everybody at one time, at least during the last year, has heard some of the problems that the VA healthcare system. Connecticut is doing a very good job in my estimation. In talking to veterans, I don't find too many complaints about you know, their healthcare. But certainly if you go to other states, that is not the case. They're not getting healthcare, and you know, this is a problem that needs to be addressed. It's one of the things that the VSOs tackles. But we can't tackle these issues unless we have the membership support. It's the numbers that make the difference. We have to compete with every other interest group that lobbies Congress for you know, whatever. And in a way you might say it's wrong, but that is the reality of the situation. And it's the membership numbers that give us the ability to go in there and do that. Other issues that we should be able to get credit for our veterans in the military training. You know, a key example are medics, corpsmen. They're some of the best trained and experienced in the field and yet still they have to wind up in some places going to classes with kids out of high school that are starting off at square one.
Yeah.
You know.
It's just like you learn a trade,
Yeah.
and you come back, and it's like you were never
Yeah,
trained.
right, yeah,
you
right.
got to start.
You got to start from scratch,
Yeah.
you know, because they don't recognize the training. Some states do, some states don't. You've been out driving a MRAP, you know, you come back, you got to go to truck driver school.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can teach
yeah.
the class.
Yeah, so you know, you may have to kind of fine tune your skills to the, you know, some of these trucks have gone, you know, with all kinds of fancy gadgets and everything, but you know, certainly, you know, you should be able to pretty well jump
get
up
the
in
basics.
the cab and you know, start it up and get it to where it's going without running into anything.
That's been a problem for decades.
Yes, right.
Decades.
So, you know, so these are some of the issues that we try to address, and we're making progress in that area. You know, these aren't all slam dunk issues. They require a lot of time and a lot of work, but we must, as I said, we have to compete for resources. And you know, we're looking for better VA services, get some of these problems straightened out, be able to get people into the VA system, get them registered so that they can, you know, get to their providers, and when they get to there, give them the best care possible. And we can't do this without an active and vibrant membership.
Well, you know, I've said it before. I mean, I served as a district commander for the Legion, post commander for a number of years, and you know, you sit there and it's clear. You know, the generation before us got us here.
Yep.
It's our duty to get the next generation in.
Right.
And there's so many veterans organizations out there. You know, the Legion, the VFW, DAV. You know, not every post is a good fit for everybody, but there is one out there for you.
And that's the way I look at it. You know, you want a post where you're going to be active and be involved. Our younger veterans, just like you and I came back, you know, they got families, they got careers, you know, all the things in trying to, you know, transition back into society. We understand that. We've been there, done that. Yeah. But just become a member. That helps us when we go into.
It's extremely important.
Yes.
Even if at the time you cannot, because your schedule, family, work, you can't get involved, be a member.
Yeah.
Be a member of the organization. You know, that is a great deal of help in itself.
And with the Amvets, no question. You know, you have that DD-214. That's all we need.
Yep.
You're in. You know, with the other, like I say, you know, it depending on where you served and such may determine whether you can belong to other organizations. But you know, considering again, you know, the current conflict, all too many have been deployed, and you know, once they set foot on their soil, you know, they're eligible for just about any of the organizations today.
Certainly the VFW and the American Legion.
Right. Right.
Actually, anybody that's been enlisted or been in the military since what, 1990? Was it 90? I
Yes.
think
Yeah.
90 to the present.
August, if I remember correctly, August 2nd, 1990.
Well, you know, here we are again, running out of time. We got.
Why do we keep doing this to ourselves?
You know, it flies by. It flies by, and we can continue to talk. It was great to have you back on again.
Chuck, it's a pleasure as always.
You know,
thank you so much for having me back.
You know, hopefully the show was very informative, not only to the veterans out there, but to families of veterans and friends of veterans. This is hopefully we touch a lot of people out there, and with all this information. But that's the end of another show. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we hope that you tune in next week. My name is Chuck Woodin, and you're watching the Veterans Corner. Good night. Yeah.
Chuck, thank you.
Yeah,
And
It was, waiting for the word.
Yeah.
But it was